This lady refused to get married, even though she isn't getting any younger. She lost the love of her life, and now the question is, will she ever find love again? Will she be able to give her heart to someone? All right, guys, let's find out. Welcome to this channel. If you're just joining us, don't forget to subscribe for more updates. Now, grab your popcorn and enjoy. The movie begins with Elaine out on a date. While waiting for her date, she takes a business call. After some time, her date arrives, and she asks why he is late. He makes excuses about being caught in traffic. They proceed to the main reason for their meeting. The next morning, Elaine is in her office when her friend Chidera comes in and asks about the date. Elaine replies that it was awful and that the guy is not her type. Chidera asks what her type is, but Elaine dismisses her, and Chidera leaves. Later, Chidera visits Elaine's house, where Elaine's mom asks her how the date went. Chidera tells her, and Elaine's mom becomes worried. She laments that her daughter is already 35 and still not in a relationship. That same day, Elaine's mom visits Nelson's dad to complain about her daughter. She suggests that he fire Elaine from her job so she can focus on her personal life. He refuses. Meanwhile, Nelson comes downstairs to ask his dad for money to buy milk. His dad directs him to the money and then tells Elaine's mom that if she's looking for a match for her daughter, she should consider Nelson. Elaine's mom declines, saying Nelson is immature, and they argue. Sometime later, Nelson and his dad have a meeting. His dad instructs him to supervise the company where Elaine works. Nelson initially resists, wanting instead to manage their Abuja branch. However, his dad insists, and Nelson reluctantly agrees. That night, Elaine is in the living room, exhausted, and falls asleep. Her mom throws a pillow at her to wake her up and scolds her for always prioritizing work over her personal life. She informs Elaine that her cousin is getting married, but Elaine, indifferent, says she doesn't know the cousin and goes to her room. The next morning, Elaine and Chidera enter the office and are surprised to find Nelson sitting in Elaine's chair. Furious, Elaine demands to know who he is and orders him to leave. Nelson tries to introduce himself, but Elaine doesn't care and calls security. As Nelson leaves, he threatens to fire everyone. Nelson later tells his father about the incident, demanding Elaine be fired. His father explains that Elaine helped build the company and will not be fired. He advises Nelson to apologize for barging into her space. Nelson refuses, and his father warns him that to succeed as an entrepreneur, he must learn from experienced people. Angry, Nelson storms off. The next day, Nelson returns to the office with official papers, announcing that he will be working there. He requests office space and a personal assistant. Elaine is shocked and storms off angrily. Later that day, Elaine and Chidera bring some work to Nelson. He argues that he is not there to be ordered around. They argue, and Elaine threatens to fire him. Nelson retorts that she can't fire him, and she leaves, challenging him to test her. The following morning, Nelson finds there's no water at home for a bath, so he goes to the office to shower. While he is dressing in his office, Elaine bursts in, scolding him for missing a meeting with a client. Nelson explains that he was in the shower, which angers Elaine further, and she storms out. Later that day, Nelson's dad asks to see Elaine. However, before the meeting, Elaine has another argument with Nelson. In frustration, Nelson intentionally spills water on her. Furious but unable to retaliate, Elaine leaves. That same day, Nelson begs his father to transfer him to another branch, claiming Elaine is making his life difficult. His father refuses, insisting it's a privilege to work with someone as competent as Elaine. Nelson is left speechless. The next morning, Nelson approaches Elaine to discuss a business deal he secured. Elaine, busy, dismisses him. Frustrated, Nelson takes the matter to Chidera instead. Later that day, Elaine falls ill, and Nelson and Chidera take her to the hospital. After the checkup, they bring her home. Chidera leaves, and Nelson stays to care for her. When Elaine's mom arrives, she thanks Nelson for his help. Elaine also comes downstairs and Nelson left, and Elaine's mom, worried about her, asked if she was feeling okay. She insisted that Elaine should not go to work the next day. Although Elaine protested, her mom was firm, leaving Elaine with no choice but to agree. The next evening, Nelson visited Elaine, bringing her flowers. They sat down and chatted, sharing a warm moment. While they were talking, Elaine received a message from her ex, Duke. She explained to Nelson that Duke was only scheduling a business meeting with her, and they continued their conversation. The following morning, Elaine was in her office talking with Chidera when Duke arrived. She welcomed him warmly as he kissed her hand. Elaine then asked Chidera to step out, and she complied. Duke and Elaine discussed business matters, and when their conversation ended, Duke prepared to leave. However, before he left, he told Elaine he missed her and believed she missed him too. He suggested they hang out, but Elaine declined, saying they should maintain a professional relationship. Duke persisted, and Elaine reluctantly agreed. Before leaving, he pecked her cheek. That night, Duke surprised Elaine with a visit. He congratulated her on securing a significant business deal and offered her a drink. They sat together, and Duke confessed that he still loved her, attempting to persuade her to rekindle their relationship. The next day, Duke and Elaine went on a date to discuss business, but Duke unexpectedly proposed to her. Shocked, Elaine rejected him, saying she wasn't ready for marriage. This angered Duke, who accused her of being stuck in the past because of her lost love. Frustrated, Elaine left angrily. Later, Elaine sat in her car at the office, visibly upset. Nelson noticed and approached her, offering to give her a ride home. At first, Elaine refused, but Nelson insisted, and she eventually agreed. When they arrived at Elaine's house, she was surprised to see Duke waiting outside. Confronting him, she demanded to know what he wanted. Duke insisted they settle their issues, but Elaine became angry, especially when Duke insulted her. She raised her hand to slap him, but he grabbed her wrist tightly, hurting her. At that moment, Nelson intervened, telling Duke to leave. The two men exchanged heated words, with Duke threatening Nelson before revealing that Elaine's mom had begged him to propose to her. This revelation left Elaine stunned. After Duke left, Elaine and Nelson went inside. Nelson encouraged her to move on from her ex and her late fiancé. However, Elaine, still deeply hurt by losing her fiancé 2 days before their wedding, said she couldn't let go and broke down in tears. Her mom entered as Nelson quietly left. Elaine confronted her mom, furious that she had asked Duke to propose to her. She felt humiliated and broken, crying as her mother tried to comfort her. The next day, after reflecting on everything, Elaine decided it was time to move on. At the office, she gave her engagement ring to Chidera as a gift, symbolizing her decision to let go of the past. Chidera was thrilled for her friend. That evening, Nelson visited Elaine and wished her a happy Valentine's Day. He gave her a thoughtful gift, which she appreciated. They spent the evening watching movies together, growing closer. From that moment, Elaine and Nelson started spending more time together, and their relationship blossomed into love. One beautiful day, Nelson took Elaine out and proposed to her. Overwhelmed with joy, Elaine said yes, and they hugged passionately, finding love again. Thank you for watching this amazing story from my world of movies. Don't forget to subscribe for more captivating stories. See you in our next movie.